Thank you, team. All right, good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know, I'm Mike Estev. I recently drew the short straw and I'm now your mayor. Thank you all for that. I'm joined tonight by two of my wonderful colleagues, Councilmember at-large Dennis Brady, and Mayor Pro Tem and Councilmember for District 2 this area, Dufour Wolfley. I'm not going to take up too much time tonight. This is the second of two budget listening sessions that we are hosting this week. The first one that we had was this past Tuesday. It was at Fairmont, one of the newer communities in Southlake. We had a pretty decent attendance, a lot of good feedback from residents on specific things. Either they wanted to see kept in the budget, taken out of the budget. We had some folks who told us point blank, I'm fine with a tax increase, just keep my services all the same. Other people said, don't raise my taxes, cut some stuff. So in that spirit, we want to keep the conversation going. We will have our next work session on the budget will be this coming Monday night at 7 p.m. at City Hall, where staff are going to present a list of services, essentially their recommendations for potential cuts. I believe it's up to potentially $5 million on that particular list, give or take. Oh, okay, great. We're going to see how much it is on Monday, but that'll be our next opportunity to start talking about potential services that we either want to keep or eliminate. Tonight, the goal is really straightforward. We're going to have city personnel present just a few minutes on the budget. You guys were given handouts that are confusing as heck. Don't worry about that. The goal of the handouts is just to give you an overall sense of essentially how much of the services is like pay and salary and benefits versus how much is commodities, equipment, and training. And the other part of it is how much of our taxes do we control, in other words, the city property tax rate, versus how much of our revenue comes from stuff that we don't control, like shared revenue from the state and the county. That's mainly just the goal of that handout, and our acting finance director will explain it in a little bit more detail. As soon as we get the staff presentation done, we're just going to open up the mic. Where do you want folks to stand? Behind here? All right. We just asked folks comes up here. Tuesdays and tonight's listening sessions are being recorded. They are on YouTube and the city website. And I believe we're live, aren't we? Maybe? We are live. So when you come to the mic, don't be overwhelmed. Just give your first name if you're comfortable with that, and just the neighborhood you're in or the street you're on so we know roughly where you are. We're taking notes because we're also trying to get a sense of where people are from, the overall trends and issues that they care about, right, based on neighborhood. It's just going to help us out a little bit. We also have a survey that's currently out in the community. We've texted it out a couple times to the folks who are subscribed to Alert Bowie. If you're not subscribed to Alert Bowie, Google Alert Bowie. Sign up. You can pick and choose what kind of things you want to get from the city, either text, calls, emails about what's going on in the community, and things like text messages asking you for survey responses on things like our budget. I understand we have over 1,000 survey responses so far, a bit higher than that, so that's great. We want to continue to get feedback. The survey is not very long. It's just basically to give us a rough idea, what services do folks care about, what services do folks care a little bit less about, and what's people's comfort level with raising taxes, or raising taxes a little bit left, or not raising taxes at all, and what trade-offs they're prepared essentially to make for that. Also want to thank my council colleague at-large, Wanda Rogers, for joining us here tonight as well. Clinton Truesdale extends his regards. He's the council member for District 3. He was in South Bowie with us. He's currently traveling for a family emergency. Council member Roxanne DiBumadu from District 4, also South Bowie, was at our last session. She's currently tied up commuting, but she will be paying attention and watching tonight's meeting, listening in from the road. So with that, I will turn this over to city personnel, and thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight.
My name is Daniel Mears. I am the acting city manager for the city of Bowie. Thank you all for coming out here this evening. I want to start with a couple quick housekeeping tips. For those that have not been here before, we have restrooms that are down the hall and to the left. We have water fountains down there as well. There is a water fountain in here as well for filling up your water bottles in case you have some need. Tonight, we are talking about the fiscal year 2027 budget. This is a product of the city staff. They've been working on this since late last fall in terms of developing their recommendations for expenditures for the city. This has been developed throughout this winter and early spring, collecting revenue projections in through March, and at the beginning part of April, this budget was delivered to the City Council. Since that time, the City Council has reviewed this, they have met, and through that, they decided that they needed to get some input from the public, which is why we are here this evening. These 2 listening sessions that we are doing is not a regular part of the city budget process, but it is one that the council wanted us to have for this budget. So the reason for this, the fiscal year 2027 budget, as it is presented, is a $98 million budget. It represents all of the city services that you are accustomed to in terms of law enforcement, trash service, street maintenance. All of the social programs are all included within this budget. The budget does not cut any staff, and it does not cut any services. However, different from years past, this budget does include a property tax increase in it. Over the years, the city has been developing its budget and has been utilizing fund balance to balance the budget each year. The city has been spending more money than it has brought in for a number of years, but the city's had a large fund balance and it has been spending it down. Last year, the budget was presented with a $19 million withdraw from the fund balance. We're not anticipating spending all of that $19 million. It's actually about $15 million, but those funds are now no longer available. All of the fund balance that is available for general government use is going to be depleted in the next fiscal year. We're anticipating on just using about $1.7 million worth of fund balance in the next fiscal year to help balance the budget. So this budget is presented with a property tax increase in it. It is a 20 cent per $100 of assessed valuation property tax increase. Each penny that the city charges in a property tax generates about $1 million. So 20-cent increase works out to about $20 million in additional revenue from property taxes that is brought in. So you can see last year we transferred about $19 million. This year we're looking to generate about $20 million in additional revenue. So this evening, you all have a handout. One of my colleagues, Mr. Bruce Miller, he is our interim finance director. He's wrapping up 4 weeks on the job with us, and he's going to go over what is included in this handout and a little overview of the information that is presented to you all. Mr. Miller.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to spend a little bit of time. You have 2 handouts. It's a very, very high-level overview relative to the city's financial position and the upcoming budget. So the first sheet I would like to provide an overview for is called the Summary of City Expenditures by Spending Category. It looks like this. So this is a summary by category. So it's personnel expenses, contract services. You can read the details down the left column. And then from the left column going over, you'll see the 26 adopted budget and the 27 proposed budget. It gives you an ability to compare one year to the next and the relative change between those 2 years. And then it also gives you the percent of the total budget. So for example, personnel services were budgeted at 48.6 last year. That has increased to $51.7 million. That's a $3.1 million change for a total percentage of total budget of 52%. Working down to the bottom, as mentioned, this year's budget is that okay? I didn't want the echo, but okay. I'm sorry. So, everybody good? Okay. This year, it's $98 million as compared to $91.8 million, which is a $6.7 million increase. The pie chart to the right provides a graphical presentation of the distribution of those expenses. So real quick, the personnel services, as mentioned earlier, is 52%. Without boring everybody, you can read around the pie chart and see what those percentages are. The next schedule on the back of the sheet is the general fund summary by department. So this is a little bit different presentation in that each of these expense departments have commingled in them the expenses that were on the front sheet, okay? So this is a granular perspective of the departments by expenditures by department, whereas the front page is by the type of expense it is. So again, same format, beginning with the city manager budget, working over. Again, if you take a look at the total budget, the numbers equal each other. And then the pie chart to the right is the graphical presentation of what each department uses of tax dollars, if you will. Public Works, for example, is at 26%, police is at 21%, and the community services at 19%. Those are the three largest expenditure departments. The next sheet, I would like to talk about revenues. You'll see, comparing the two schedules, the totals balance, $98 million to $98 million. But the first schedule I like to go over is called Revenue Sources by Level of Control. This is very, very important in that there are some revenues that the city can control, and there are other revenue sources that the city cannot control. So when you get into a balancing process, if you will, some areas you can touch, some areas you can't. So the uncontrollable sources represent 0.62% of the budget. Controllable fees and fines and local receipts, you'll see that it only represents 7.51% of the budget. Transfers and other funding sources was a decline, and that represents 2.4% of the budget. And the city manager, acting city manager, went through a little bit of that. And finally, the last category of revenues are taxes, and that represents 69% of the budget. And again, as previously, the pie chart gives you a graphical representation of what that means. The last area I would like to touch, and again, is the conversation relative to fund balance. You'll see that last year we used, or the city used, $19.8 million of fund balance. Again, fund balance is a one-time revenue source, so it's like a savings account. Once you deplete your savings account, you have to raise funds. You have to go get another job, if you will, or whatever that means, or cut your household expenditures. The city essentially is in the same situation. So we went from $19.8 million down to $1.8 million, and as the city manager also noted, that essentially depletes all of the fund balances. So what is the impact to the average home buyer, or no buyer, the average owner? So the first number on the right-hand side is the tax rate per $100. So if you know your assessed value, you can multiply that assessed value by the $100,000 and get a pretty close estimation of what your individual impact would be. So the tax rate per $100 of assessed value is a 20-cent increase. So for each $100,000 of assessed value, taxes increase by about $17 per month. And if you multiply that by the $400,000, which is essentially the average assessed value for the community, and that's $67 per month. Multiply that by 12, that gives you your annual increase if you are looking at things on an analyzed basis. So with that, I'll turn it back over to the city manager, and we'll kick off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. So as a reminder, he mentioned if you are interested in seeing the full budget, it is available on the city's website. Just Go to our website, type in the keyword budget, and it will take you right to the page where the budget is located. A couple reminders, Mayor Estev had mentioned about the survey. We have a QR code available for the survey here in case you want to scan that. One other item that I wanted to mention, if you want to sign up for Alert Bowie, we have a QR code you can scan over there for Alert Bowie to sign up for all of our alerts. So this evening, the idea is we are going to hear from all of you. What we're going to ask you to do is come up to the podium, speak into the podium, state your name, where you're from, be street, neighborhood, whatever you like, and the council will be able to hear your input. We may be able to answer a couple questions for you, but ultimately the floor is yours this evening. So who would like to start us off tonight? Mr. Vining, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. I've never been a shy person. That being said, my question to the council would be this. And I hope I don't sound like I'm yelling and screaming at anybody, because it does feel loud in here because I have a booming voice. When you're looking at the budget and you're looking at it from the perspective of the increase of the $17 a month for the $400,000 value, yada, 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 and all that kind of stuff, are you looking at it from a standpoint it starts April 30th, Jan 1, June 30? What are we talking about? And when this, stuff that everybody has been talking about will kick in? And if you're somebody like myself, what should we be planning for? So that would be my first question as to what do we anticipate, when and how?
I'll start things off. This would kick in for the next fiscal year, and you would see it in your tax bill that you get. Typically, I think first payment is December, I think is when we get the bill, in October, September, sometime in there. September 30th, you're right. And December 31st. So first and second September, and then in December is part 2 of it. So this is if you hold a mortgage or someone holds a mortgage on your home, they will be adjusting your fund. They'll adjust your payment so that you end up paying the tax through that process.
Right, but right now, if you look at the big picture, if you will, I'm looking at a situation where, I live month to month and I get one bite at the apple. A lot of people who are retirees are in the same situation. And I'm looking at this from the standpoint that, we've got a little bit of cushion right now, and I'm trying to plan for it accordingly. And I'm trying to sit here and say to myself, if I'm going to plan for this correctly, and I'm putting in X number of dollars times X number of months and making this payment go off to my mortgage company, and then the following time once they receive it and the payment clears my account, I'm going to call them up and I'm going to say, I want this strictly in escrow. I don't want to go into principal or anything else, and I want it being set aside so when it comes to time to pony up for you all, we're prepared and we don't got, sideswiped and get some unpleasant surprise that we're not prepared for down the road. And that's the thing that is key on the back of my mind right now, because it's going to happen and there's no way of avoiding it. It's just how to plan for it. And I'm trying to figure out, again, going back to the original premise of my question, are we talking from Jan 1, April 30, June 30? Where are we talking about as to when the clock started on all of this? July 1. So we're talking 6 months that we have to plan for this stuff for. And that's what I'm trying to get clarity, because in my mind, when you all were sitting there talking about this at City Hall, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, X number of dollars times 12, yada, yada, as opposed to 6 times X, and it's a big difference. So that helps to know. And that's pretty much it, my piece, and other than what I share with you at City Hall in the public session, which I don't think this is the situation for, I will leave that be.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
you
Varney.
know what I'm saying.
Thank you, Scott,
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Before I forget, one more housekeeping note. If you have one of those cell phones that rings out loud, if you would change that to one of the cell phones that rings very quietly, we would appreciate that as well.
I've already turned mine off.
Who would like to come up to the podium after Mr. Viney? Thank you, sir.
Not a problem. And I hope you get the position.
A little plug there. Hi, my name is Barbara. I live in the Q section. I first had a question. I see that personnel services, in terms of expenditures, jumped $3 million. Can you address specifically what that is?
Certainly, I can address that. Personnel costs for the city are the largest expense category. We are very labor intensive in terms of the work that we deliver.
Sure.
The increase in personnel costs are associated with increases for salary, for benefits across the organization. The city is committed to certain labor agreements that have been negotiated and have cost increases associated with those. So that reflects all of those increases.
Did we add staff, I guess is what I'm getting at.
There is no staff added into that.
Okay, okay. Again, cost of living. I am appreciative of this opportunity to get up and ask questions and understand what's going on with the budget process. I know that we're coming through a time of turmoil in terms of our budget and our finances. We had a lot of up and downs recently, and I'm looking forward to this budget addressing and maybe smoothing some things out along the way. I specifically have some questions about not expenditures per se, but maybe revenue is more a concern of mine. I know that we're going to have to levy the tax. I get that. But I wonder if there are some areas of revenue that we're overlooking that we could be leveraging further. In my world, events are a big moneymaker, but they're also, I come from the nonprofit sector, they're also a huge expenditure. And I wonder if we're performing ROI, return on investment, for all of our events. I know they're a great favorite. We have Bowie Fest, we have the Old Town Festival, but are we getting the bang for our buck? Again, for the high expenditures, are we getting a high return? I think that's a general concern of mine, and again, from the world that I come from. The other, for example, one thing that's always stuck in my craw is the farmer's market. We have a really small farmer's market, and yet we have a big municipality. We have a big population. And I go just a few doors down to the Crofton Farmer's Market, and it's bustling. It has 20, 30, 40 vendors, and we have 10. Again, the cost of putting on these events, is it worth the return, is what I'm asking. The other area that I'd like to address is revenue. Are we getting the most out of potential revenue opportunities? In my world, they're called non-dues or non-dues revenue. We have a federal grant project, a number of federal grant projects and state grant projects, but they've decreased in return. For example, it's gone from $80,000 to $20,000 in federal grants, and it's gone from $12,000 to $2,500 in state grants. And I know our team on staff is doing a great job, but are we doing enough to identify new and unusual forms of revenue in addition to some of the taxes? I think that most of our services, really shouldn't be cut. Youth services, workforce development, I think they're paramount. So that's why I'm emphasizing, let's look at alternative forms of revenue so that we can keep these services going and not have to levy too many cuts. That's all I had.
Yeah.
Doesn't require a specific answer.
Oh, that's okay. I'll just say thank you for the question and for the detail on grants. We're definitely always looking for grant opportunities, and one of the things that we're going to be doing this year is really doubling down on just seeing what additional federal and state opportunities exist. We have a federal personnel who did secure about $3 million this year to help with the water and sewer fund, which is great. We've been getting like spurts of help from the federal government for that project. Still a drop in the bucket, but it makes every difference. We have a pretty good grants office, and we're going to be working closely with them to make sure that we're not missing any opportunities. There's often a lag with federal and state help, so we were benefiting from pandemic funds as recent. In fact, in this past budget, our new amphitheater at Allen Pond Park was entirely funded through funds we got during the pandemic. So there has been a bit of a lag with that. The budget.
It dried up.
Oh yeah.
A lot of federal funds.
Right.
Especially since we're blue state.
Well, and as a lot of folks in this room who work for the feds know, there has been a bit of a tightening at the federal level, which, we'll see what it looks like down the road. And the state, of course, is dealing with a growing budget deficit of their own, as is the county. But to your point about grants, we're definitely going to be open-minded. We are also looking at events, both what we can do in terms of revenue generation and also what events may not be worth the squeeze. So that is definitely a conversation that we're having. Do any of my colleagues want to jump in on this one?
Just a quick comment. It's not something that we can expect anything for this particular budget cycle, but we are looking at other sources of revenue. We're trying to find ways to get away from the purely residential tax base and try and broaden that tax base to include other things. And so we're looking for some economic development efforts that we're going to be pursuing. We're looking at how we should be doing that, whether we should have an economic development organization to help strengthen that effort on our part. We're looking, at opportunities. Say the one that comes to me and the one that's near and dear to me is Bowie Town Center. It's tired. It's old. The services that are offered there are not, top flight anymore. It used to be top flight, but it kind of cycles. I think if we change the nature of that place in terms of providing more residential, some work environments, some play, some entertainment, bring it all together with some higher end retail and restaurants, it will be a lot better for us in the community at large, but also will help us with the tax base, diversifying the tax base so that we don't have to rely on as much of our income coming directly from our taxes on our houses. So we're looking for those sorts of opportunity. That's not going to happen in one budget cycle. These are long plays. These take years to put into play. So that's the sort of thing we're also looking at, and we do pursue what we can. As the mayor said, we get ourselves a fair number of efforts for example, water and sewer, getting funding from there. We just recently got $1 million courtesy of our federal delegation. So where we can, the problem is they're not 100% reliable. We can't count on them. We'll pursue them when we can, but we're not in a position where we can say, I know I'll be getting that grant at such and such a period of time. So, yeah. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add to what you said, because it is very important to have in our toolkit of revenue sources a variety. So we talked about the grants, the federal and states. One of the things that we have talked about is public-private partnerships, trying to utilize private sector to help us fund those things that we feel is better important. So that's a couple things, as well as, looking at our parks and looking at the fees. So it's a whole toolbox of things, but I appreciate your comment. Thank you.
I understand that. I mean, when you say public-private partnerships, I think that's
Hold on a second.
I'm sorry. When you say public-private partnerships, it really sparks an interest for me. I worked for a short time with an organization called Community Forklift over in Bladensburg, and I know that we have a rebuild program here in Bowie. Well, why aren't we partnering with them to get free, household products and appliances and foster that program together? So that's the kind of diversification that you're talking about that I'm interested in. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do love community forklift.
Yeah. So that will be the last time we hand a microphone out into the audience. We're going to have anybody that wants to come up, please come up to the podium in the future. But Mr. Brady, I think, needs to have a comment as well. Thank you.
No, I'm just going to follow up, and forgive me for my rough voice. A couple of things. Municipalities and counties and what have you are extremely restricted by the state on how they can raise money. For us, it's basically the tax base, property tax. And unfortunately, in Bowie, we're about 85 to 90% residential tax base, and that's the problem. And one of the components, and it's not a short term, it won't solve this year's budget, but one of the things we need to do is diversify our tax base and increase the percentage that is commercial or essentially non-residential. And there are a couple of ways to do that. Redevelopment, such as town center and what have you. If all we get is new businesses in the existing building, it gets us nothing because it doesn't change the footprint, doesn't change the assessment. It'll add to the sales tax, but that doesn't come to us. If they redevelop and build and add square footage, it increases the assessed value. Some of that money will come to us. So that's a kind of a sword that we're balanced on right now. So we need to diversify our tax base, including annexing some areas outside the city, because essentially the city is built. There's not a lot of opportunities unless we go vertical in the existing spots. But there are some spots, and one that comes to mind to me is Six Flags as a possibility of annexing it in, especially if that is more of an arts and entertainment or an office area, because when you look at the tax revenue, when residents come in, when subdivisions come in, there's a lot of, there's taxes money coming in, but there's a cost of services to provide them. Whereas commercial, the tax money comes in, the services aren't as high, so there's a net positive flow of money coming in. So that's helpful. And I could go on and on, I won't, but the last thing I'll say is, in this last session, they enacted a study, summer study program, where they're going to look at the issue of revenue for municipalities and see, and they're going to look at other states and see how other places do it in order to come up with ways, because I said we are constrained by state law, so maybe the state legislatures, legislators and personnel will look at it and change it, because we've been fighting for decades to try and get something. The last time we tried to get a half-cent sales tax added, and they said no. So there's challenges ahead, and as I said, the problem we have is the current budget is kind of grim. But the solution is in 3 to 5 years. Unfortunately, it doesn't help us. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bob Kellaway. I live in the K section here. I'd like to echo this lady's comments. I really appreciate a lot of the services that the city provides, especially the youth and family services. I participate in the mentor program, so I really appreciate that. Also, the sustainability and planning with the green team support that you guys provide. A couple of questions. So we've talked a lot about the revenue side. What are you doing on the cost side to help control or to balance the budget? Next question would be, will we be replenishing this fund balance that you talk about that has now been depleted? I imagine that, is that kind of like the rainy day fund? So are we going to be replenishing that? And what impact does this have on our credit rating? Because that'll have a direct impact on any future loans that we have to take out. And looking at the proposed assessment cost, it looks like for every $100,000 it turns out to be about 50 cents a day. So, if you like the services here in Bowie, if you think it's worth 50 cents a day, it's not a bad deal. So, thank you.
Bob, thanks for coming out. To your first question about, well, one, I guess, was a statement about liking the services, and then cost containment. We're going to be talking about specific cuts that we could make on Monday. I think the challenge in Bowie, I remember when I first joined the council in 2015, I personally am a little bit more libertarian, just speaking only for myself. I don't really care how tall my neighbor's grass is. I think I've called the police department once in my life, animal control twice. My neighbor's parakeets keep getting out. I don't really use a lot of city services or amenities. I probably produce enough trash for pickup once every 3 weeks, recycling every 2 weeks. And I got a gym membership at SportFit, so I'm just not using that much stuff. So if the city were built around my needs, we'd have 1/5 the staff, 1/4 of the tax rate. And one of the things that I learned the hard way, the first couple of years I was on the council dealing with budget issues, then is every time that I would throw out things that I thought weren't necessary, I would immediately hear from roomfuls of people much like yourself who would come up with 100 really good reasons why every single thing we were doing was extremely important and we couldn't let go of it. So as far as cost containment, it's 100% up to residents. It's 100% up to residents. We've got a survey out right now. If we hear from a big chunk of the people who are getting back to us that they're ready to let go of vacuum leaf collection can be gone, right? That saves us, I don't know, how much, 100 grand a year, 200 grand a year, right? It's a start. So, if there's anything that residents are willing to jettison, trust me, you've got 4 council members who live here who also pay the cost of living here. We're not excited about paying more either. But as far as cost containment, we're going to be looking carefully at the surveys. We're reading our inboxes really carefully. Many of you have been writing into us already. We're paying attention to that. Don't think that an email can't make a difference. It does. We read them. We're not that popular, so when we get email, it's a big deal to us. So please continue to give us feedback. There are some things that I think are easier to say goodbye to, like vacuum leaf collection. It's not that useful. It's actually better to just mulch it. It's better for your lawn. It's really expensive. I'm not entirely sure why we keep doing it. Dufour's going to fight me though. But I mean, these are the kinds of fights that we need to have, right? These are the kinds of fights that we're going to have. You raised another point, Bob, which I wrote down but left over here. What was your other question? Replenishing. Oh yeah. So here's the fun part. Even if we do the full tax rate increase, the fund balance will be zero going next year. We will have $0. Now, the good news is the city carries relatively low levels of debt overall for a municipality. Between the federal government, the state government, the county government, and the city, only one of those still has a AAA bond rating. Want to guess who it is? We're holding on. But the key is we cannot borrow any new money whatsoever until that fund balance starts to rebuild, right? And the plan is to take on no new debt. The credit rating agencies are going to be giving us a passive glance. We're avoiding a close look until we can get that fund balance back up. The credit rating agencies, we want them to avoid looking too closely at us, which means not taking on new debt until we can get that fund balance up to our statutory 25% minimum. And that will take some time. That's going to require more growth in the tax base than we're currently seeing. That may require some future cuts or some future increases to slowly build back. Or, we've had good luck in the past. I mean, Councilman Brady will tell you, and others who've been doing this for a while, staff have been warning about the imminent end of the fund balance for almost 23, 24 years. One of our residents actually showed us a chart that documented every predicted collapse in the fund balance and then the actual fund balance. And it's like a waterfall. The actual fund balance is a straight line and the collapse has never happened. But this year, everything that could go wrong went wrong. So this is the year that the boy who cried wolf finally met the wolf. Which in fairness, eventually it was going to happen. We just didn't know when the bottom was going to fall out. Did that address all your questions? Thank you, Bob.
And I'll add one more tidbit. We, as part of this exercise for the budget process, this is, anybody here work for the feds? Yeah, federal employees or, feds, all right. Yeah, used to, yeah, I'm a former fed, right. We always started with last year's budget and see how much more they could add. The city doesn't work that way. The city works from zero-based budgeting approach where they go through every year and they start and they look at their anticipated level of effort, the expenses, what needs to be done. So it's a more honest, earnest look at what costs are going to be. It's not just a last year plus 5. This is a case where we actually go through and say, we're looking at fuel prices, they went up 8%, or we did this project last year, so we won't need as much this year. So they all take a look at that starting in, it's probably in October, right? Yeah, October.
Hi, I'm Rita Trothauer, and I live in South Bowie. And I see apartments and townhouses going up and down 301 at the rate that is unbelievable. Not one penny do I see repair for or widening the road of 301. And then I wonder, with all these townhouses going up and all the tax bases, is everybody paying their fair share? There are areas that call themselves Bowie, but they're unincorporated, so they don't have to pay taxes. And I think that I wonder whether or not if they have the police come to them when they have a robbery. Are we supplying our police force for all of Bowie, even for those who are unincorporated and not paying their fair share of our bill? At first, I started to come up here with a written statement on how much I appreciate the police department because they're such a big part of our budget. I've lived in South Bowie since 1969, when Prince George's County had taken care of anything that we needed for the police department. But because they considered Bowie not very important because we were affluent and major things didn't happen here in Bowie. Well, I will tell you, back then when we did not have a police force, I was robbed. All my electronics were stolen, including my car. Prince George's County Police said, well, you know, it's only material things. And I was quite grateful that nobody was hurt and nobody was home. And then when they found my car, they said, well, we're too old and tired to run after them. But you got your car back. Once we got a police force, I felt we were really covered if we needed police. And I think that even though it's the largest, one of the largest parts of the budget, I am afraid to attack that because I truly am willing to pay more to feel safe. And there is nothing about Prince George's County that wouldn't start the criminals coming to Bowie if they knew we didn't have a police force. Thank you.
Well, I can start off by answering a few of those questions for you. As far as providing services to those outside of incorporated Bowie, we do not. As a matter of fact, I think all of us here on the council have at some point in time received a phone call where somebody says, why isn't my road plowed? And we say, oh, we'll get right on that. What's your road? And you get the road and you say, I don't remember that road, and you look it up. It's not in incorporated Bowie, and you have to explain to them. Sometimes it's quite an argument. They say, no, we are in Bowie. We were told we are in Bowie, and in fact they're not. And they are in mailing Bowie, but they're not in incorporated Bowie. So we do not. Now, there are circumstances where we do provide mutual aid. So if there's a big emergency somewhere, the county will help us and we will help them. But as a matter of general patrolling and things along those lines, we don't do that outside of our jurisdictions. So on the on the townhouses and so forth, Route 3, 301, it's a nightmare. It's been getting worse. It's not getting any easier. As everybody knows here, we don't have land use authority, so we're not in a position to say, no, don't put the buildings there now because the road's not available for it. However, if they are incorporated Bowie, we do get their taxes, except in the case of South Lake, there was a TIF that was involved in exchange for coming into the city. They were given tax increment funding. That's long history on that, but the short answer on that is we don't get any money from them at the present, but eventually down the road we will. So at present, we provide services for ourselves, not for our neighbors, other than what we have. If someone comes to the gym, we have non-resident rates and things along those lines, but we don't provide general services outside of there. Anybody else want to?
I just want to mention something about unincorporated Bowie, because that's a brand new terminology. And I don't know what the purpose of it is except to associate itself with Bowie. Well, they don't get any of the services. So there was an article, the county clerk of the court was carjacked over by Woodmore Town Center. And it was reported on the news that it was in unincorporated Bowie, and the person that did the carjacking lived in Largo, but it was reported as unincorporated Bowie. It is not unincorporated Bowie. It is Largo. They use the mailing address at the post office as unincorporated. So I'll mention that. The other thing is I recognize your concern around the highways, particularly 301. There is not a time of day that I drive down that road that there's not traffic, and it's backed up from Central Avenue up to 197. So we understand and recognize that. And as new homes are built and people buy them, then those roads will get backed up even more. One thing, at least the two builders that are directly impacted by 301, which is South Lake and Mill Branch Crossing, they have created exit and entrance on and off ramps to at least alleviate some of that backup. But I do know that people that are living in South Lake now are still having a challenge getting out of their development because 301 is backed up over at Wawa. So I just wanted to make that statement, and maybe we can do something with the press, telling them there is no unincorporated Bowie. Thank you.
Do you have a?
No, I was just going to piggyback on that with regards to, and this goes back many, many years, and it's a two-pronged problem. One is, and it's across the country, the post office designates an area around a town or municipality as that name, and then all of a sudden all the people seem to think they live in that area, and we've had this problem with Bowie for decades, and it just gets worse at times, especially when there's crime associated with it, because it gets tied to us, and the reporters pick up on that because of the map, if you will, from what the post office is. And I want to throw this out. This is something that came last summer, and it's kind of a new thought. in talking to state highways at the Maryland Municipal League last year, pushing for something to be done with 301. And I use it as an example of what's going on up north of Baltimore, going up to Bel Air and what have you with all the express lanes and all, and pushing them to do something like that. And the response was interesting. He said, well, if we did toll roads, we could do that for 301. Well, the toll roads, they'd catch revenue for the regional and national traffic, but have local lanes that would ease the cost, if you will, for local. So that's a possibility that may be able to accelerate the discussion with the possibility of improving 301. There were plans developed around 1998 to 2000. And I hate to say this, I was on one of those groups back then, but they developed nice possible design concepts, and they were put on the shelf, and they aged and got antiquated. And then they've updated them a few times, and the last one that I recall about 10 years ago, just the interchange for 197 and 301 was like $300 million to do that, from Excalibur up to 50. So it's a very costly thing, and we need to think of a new way. And apparently, according to state highways, because if you do a toll road, then the revenue stream and the funding structure changes from just something coming out of the state legislature with regards to an appropriation for the funding. So that's just something that might develop over the coming months and years and what have you for a new approach. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Michelle Johnson. I hope my voice is heard, but not too loud. So I'm in Rockledge. I have a couple of quick points and gratitude for all the services that we do get in Bowie and how much we're listened to and invited. In that vein, the Alert Bowie, what percentage of city residents actually receive those notices? Because for those of us who come out, we see a lot of friends and the same usual people. So my question would be, is there a way to get more residents familiar with receiving those alerts? Number 2 point, Michael, I believe you mentioned hearing back from a chunk of the public would drive action. And that's related to what I first said, was how many people are responding to what's being asked or put forward. The third and fourth points are leaf collection. My kids are now 27 and 32. And every time we heard the leaf trucks, we'd go out front. I have recordings on my phone of the trucks picking up leaves, and now that I have grandchildren, but I'm willing to have one leaf pickup, and I have about 3 foot of leaves on some of my beds, so all of the things. And the fourth point would be your Crofton Farmers Market. I'm a Bowie artist. I'll be up there Saturday, and I've been there since they opened 11 years ago. I tried the Bowie Farmers Market, and there's no foot traffic. I don't need any answers to anything. Thank you. Not right away.
I know we can, come on, talk a little bit about our favorite communication tool.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Sullivan. I work in the communications division. So right now we have about 13,000 residents subscribed. We do go to festivals, Bowie Fest, which is canceled this year, Juneteenth, which is also canceled. But we do promote it there to try to get more people. Yes, unfortunately. But we do promote it there, so. I'm sorry? They're actually redoing the amphitheater. Yeah, so there's construction, so we can't have it there. But does that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay, cool. 13,000 out of what are we, 55?
58, plus or minus, yeah. Yeah.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Craig Muckle. I live in Grovehurst. We've been living there since 1998. So I was at the meeting on Tuesday, so thanks for having me back, but I did have a couple other questions, so I won't revisit those that I mentioned on Tuesday, but I do appreciate your question about the ROI. As a business person, someone sat in the chamber, a couple of chamber chairman seats, including the one in Bowie. I appreciate that. And your comments, sir, about the reserve fund, because that was actually where my question was going. So either for the city manager or the council, my first question about the reserve fund that's now pretty much depleted is, how long is it going to take for us to replenish it before we can use it again? Because, you know, obviously it's going to be dependent upon what revenue is raised we can put in, but I mean, what's the plan or your best guess right now? And I know you got to have to do some research around that, but there's got to be a point where it's going to be usable again. And I think we would want to know that, because that's going to, it sounds like we're going to be severely hindered in the absence of that. So that's number one. Number two, going back to the reserve fund, I asked about that on Tuesday. So the one question I didn't ask, and thankfully one of my chamber colleagues I ran into at the bowling alley last night, and I was talking to her about it, so she reminded me about things we do in the nonprofit sector. Has the city, what's the frequency of the city's audits? And what have those audits delivered in terms of how we're spending our money? Because when you're, you know, working in the nonprofit sector, and I've chaired chambers, I've also been on a lot of nonprofit boards, we talk about audits on some regular basis to understand how the money's being spent and what guidance those the auditors are giving the organization to how best to spend the money. And if we're not doing that, I would highly recommend we do, because as I mentioned the other day, I get the impression that a lot of the reason we're in a lot of these positions is we've flown by the seat of our pants. So that's just my perspective, but I'd like to hear your point of view or what the response is to that audit. And then just an observation in terms of the revenue side. And as someone who's been an advocate for recreation, I've chaired the Sports, Hospitality, and Entertainment Committee. I was disappointed that the skating rink went away. Because there was an opportunity to not only provide additional services for our residents, but more importantly, to bring people from other jurisdictions here for tournaments and other events. And I understand that maybe we weren't getting everything we wanted from the folks that wanted to help us build that, but I think it was a short-sighted situation where we just walked away from it because it was money wasted, and we have nothing to show for it, and it's a missed revenue opportunity that I think we sorely are missing now. And, you know, it's going to be very difficult to rekindle that. So I would encourage you, the next time we have those situations, we have to do a better job of finding a way to compromise. I think it was just very short-sighted to walk away and take our ball because we didn't get what we wanted. So I appreciate your response. Thank you. Excuse me? Ice skating. You can use this one before.
Here we go. Thank you. So I'll start off with the audit. We are audited every year, and we receive the reports. Our audits have come back clean on an ongoing, regular basis. They actually, our budget gets recognized on a regular basis for its completeness, its detail, and all of that. So all of the general infrastructure, there's no money that's fallen off the back of the truck, right? They're like, oh, if we only close the gate to the truck, we'd find a couple $1 million. We don't have that sort of problem, and these audits are regular, and we have auditors that are accustomed to doing municipalities. So it's not like somebody who's unaware how to do this. So that's part one. The question about telling us how we should spend our money, they're not going to do that. They're going to tell us if the money was spent the way we wanted it to be spent, or if it was misspent, but they're not going to say, you should have spent money on this amenity, or you should plow more streets or pave more roads. they are just going to tell you that you told them to pave 20 miles and they paved 20 miles, the bill came in, it got paid, nobody ripped you off. So from that standpoint, from the standpoint of other revenues, I'm going to turn over to our acting finance director. Is it 2.5% or something that are other revenues? I can't remember the exact numbers.
Controllable fees, fines, and local receipts are 2.7%
2.7%
of the budget.
All right, so 2.7%. So when you look at, in the grand scheme of things, how do we, resolve getting additional monies for our budget to try and balance it? We could double our fees and it still wouldn't make much of a difference, right? It's still just a couple $1 million that it's going to raise. That doesn't mean we shouldn't, and as a matter of fact, 2 meetings ago, we did direct staff to go back, revisit all of the fees that we charge to see if they're consistent with where they should be. Have they always just been that way? Is that fairly close to fair market value? That sort of thing. I will say this, though. A lot of the things that we do as a community, the things we do as a city, we do because it's not profitable. We run a gym, we put out soccer fields and all these other things because nobody else will do that because they are not revenue generators. So we are doing this as a community, as a city. We make these expenditures so that we have these amenities. And to this day, the only amenity that I am aware of that has ever paid for itself is the golf course. The golf course had bonds that were issued to make payments, and then those payments were made by the company that ran the golf course for us. That having been said, in the last couple of years, we've had to put a lot of money into that, so the calculus might be upside down on that too, because that changed a little bit when we got the property back in our hands, and we said, we need to improve the driving range, the holes need maintenance, the paths and all that sort of stuff. So even the golf course probably is a net negative for us in the long run. So nonetheless, the point is well taken, and staff is going to be looking at those fees and assessing if there's an appropriate change that needs to be made. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
Councilman, if I may, I just want to say, my point for bringing up the ice skating rink is not so much just the fees that's derived from regular usage, but also about the opportunity to bring people in, like for soccer, lacrosse, basketball. I officiate. Trust me, I've officiated tournaments at the Bowie gym, and honestly, a few more courts would make it a big difference. And you have people. I've traveled couple hundred miles, maybe 300 miles to officiate basketball games out of state. And there are people that will come here for their kids, because we're a bowling family also, so we go everywhere to bowl. And the real point I'm trying to make is people will go where there's events, where there's opportunity to have the events around athletics.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so, yes. Yeah. So absolutely, we're getting a nice rink, but let me follow up on the mathematics.
So that's really what I'm trying to get at.
Absolutely. So let me follow up on the mathematics for that. Mr. Brady mentioned earlier about our sources of revenue, where we could get, and basically we are kind of stuck with property taxes. When somebody comes in for a bowling tournament or for anything else, the community benefits in terms of the businesses. The city does not benefit. We do not get any tax revenue from anything that comes in. They could have, the biggest soccer tournament or lacrosse tournament, and it won't affect our bottom line. It may affect the bottom line of people who do business here, the people who, the restaurateurs or the hotels or what have you.
That's really where this conversation is going, because the more infrastructure we have, the more opportunity we have to do the ancillary things that we can take advantage of. So that's really and I don't want to devolve the conversation because you've been very generous with the opportunity, so I appreciate that. But I just wanted to make sure we have
what I'd like to be able to do is to have those people come to town and then tax those expenditures that they're making as opposed to relying on our collective tax base of our homes.
So-
And I just don't want to get lost on, so how long is it going to take for the
Craig.
gap to be closed?
I was just going to, you asked about the audit, you asked
Yes.
about the replenishment. I will say that coming from the Department of Treasury, where that was my responsibility
Sure.
around auditing, the city has done an outstanding job with their audit documents. Everything, I was actually complimented them over the last couple of years about the thoroughness of their audit. With that being said, when information was shared with the council about the audit, there was discussions with the finance director around the fund balance. So the mayor spoke earlier about, how we would go along and we'd get this doom and gloom, but the city actually did their accounting more conservatively in their investing. We've come to a point now where the chickens have come home to roost, and so therefore we have to stop kicking the can down the road and take responsibility and accountability for making sure that we do what we need to do around the budget. With that other question around, when will the fund balance be replenished? I will just say this much from my perspective, is that we will not know that until we can sit down and look at what our future may look like financially.
Okay.
We don't have an answer to that yet.
That's fair.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
my question was not to suggest any malfeasance. It was really just about trying to be, more mindful of where our money is going. So I didn't want to suggest anything other than just making sure we're doing the right thing. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Craig, just to piggyback a little bit on some of that, the issue with the fund balance has always been of concern over the years, and I know the mayor talked about all the budgets had these curves that showed 6 years, 7 years, we would drop below the 25% minimum that we adopted 30 years ago. And that was a tool. It wasn't necessarily factually correct. And I say that because what the finance department did was they overestimated future costs and they underestimated, future revenues, just to show council each budget year what the future looked like 3, 5, 7 years down the road. It was never a factually data-driven information. It was generalized, and we knew it. And as the mayor said, the actual fund balance continues to stand relatively high. The problem is, here recently in the last few years, there's been a major problem where we've been spending way too much money of out of our fund balance to pay for operating expenses that we should never have been doing. And actually, I will personally apologize for the last 2 budgets I worked on, and I think others need to step forward and take accountability for what's happened over the last 3 to 5 to 7 years, because we are suffering today because of the short-sightedness of the recent decisions on budgets. We need to be a little more, council sets policy, council adopts the budget, we tell staff what our priorities are, and we tell them what kinds of services, what new projects, what expansion of projects we want, and then we adopt the budget. So we need to act a little more fiscally responsible when it comes to that, because in the last several budgets we haven't done that. So we are now having to pay the price, and we need to step forward and do better by you with regards to this budget. It's going to be painful. Tax increases are going to be painful. Service cuts are going to be painful. But we need to come up with a compromise that will allow us to move forward. And I'll close with regards to the reestablishing the fund balance. It definitely won't happen this year, because this is the year we zero it out. But we need to act responsibly so that we can come up with a plan to get back to an appropriate level in the near future. And in the near future, I mean in 3 to 5 years, if not sooner. But I expect it'll be a little longer. Thank you.
I just wanted to mention one other thing. Mr. Muckle brought up a couple nights ago about the importance of strategic planning. And that's, to me, it's 5 to 10 years out. And if we had a plan, then we would have used that plan to direct spending and not be as, I guess, arbitrary, for lack of a better term, in moving forward. So we understand what happened, and now our goal is to actually commit to fixing it. Thank you.
How you doing? I'm Dave Morgan. I live in Highbridge Park. I've never said the A section, though. Like everyone's Q and U. I just say Highbridge Park. I had a couple other questions, which was not very difficult, but since you were talking, Mr. Brady, you spurred me to ask you a very hard question. I think you said about people should apologize for or take accountability of the last several budgets. So I was asked a hard question. Weren't all 4 of you on that budget for the last 3 or 4 years?
2 years for me. I apologize.
I know Mike was, I know Dufour was, and you've been around for a long time. It only takes 4 to get there, and it leaves 3. Are you saying the other folks who have departed and seem to be to higher office, soon to be probably a congressman? So, a lot of people here. Higher office? Well, I do pay attention. You have your mayor's gone. I know where he is, and so does everybody else. Your other councilman is running for Congress, backed by Steny Howard, and we have Ingrid Harrison, now Watson. She's gone. The point is, it's only 6, 7 members in the Congress, include the mayor, and many of you here, except for 2. So, what happened then?
What happened?
Yes. I wasn't going to ask these questions, but you brought it up about accountability in Florida. You had 3 or 4 people, and so are you saying the other ones who weren't there were the issue of why these
I think
accountability wasn't done and we weren't raising taxes at a very moderate rate and took $19 million out of a fund? And of course, other things happened. I'll pause for the answer. Anybody?
Want me to start with this one? I'll start with this one, Dave, since I'm mayor.
Cool.
I mean, you've been following for a long time, and I think anyone who's been following some of our newsletters for a while have known that this is not a new issue. We've been talking about the need for either cuts or incremental tax increases for a while. And if you go back as early as 2006, city staff had been warning pretty much every year, almost every year, that we needed a 2, 3, or 5 cent tax rate increase in order to offset growth in the police department and other costs so that we could avoid inevitable long-term fall off the cliff like we're facing this year. I'm not going to throw anyone by name under the bus. All I will say is this. All of our meetings are public. They're on camera. The meeting minutes are public. Every year, we have done budget guidance in January. We have voted on the tax rate in May. We have adopted the budget in late May or early June. If you just Google my name and newsletter and taxes, you will find reporting on this from me going back to 2021, 2020. The short version is, what I think I can safely say without throwing any of our friends in higher office under the bus, is that tax increases are unpopular. We're dealing with the same problem with our water and sewer rate. We have known, not for 10 or 20 or 30, we have known for 40 years that we were setting a water rate on the city water sewer system that was too low to save money for inevitable long-term repairs. And every time past councils would try and raise the rates a little bit to start saving that money, you would have some voters come out of the woodwork, you would have some members of council who are long gone, who would kind of go all populist on the issue, and so the system never saved money. So now we have $180 million worth of repairs to a water and sewer system that generates $700,000 a year in revenue. Yeah, ow. So on so many fronts, this has been a recurring theme where politicians, and in some cases voters too, don't want to pay the cost of stuff thinking about the long term. As I was telling one young lady earlier today, we were talking about this at the federal level, Social Security and Medicare go bankrupt in 6 years. The fact that we're not talking about this every day is insane to me, but here we are. So luckily in Bowie, we have to have a balanced budget, we have to pay our bills, we're out of reserve money, so our backs are against a wall, and we have to fix it, right? The town is going to be here next year because by law we have to fix it. But it's so many other layers of government. I personally stay awake at night as someone who might be alive another 40 to 50 years living in this country. I stay awake at night very worried about what the long-term picture looks like for our country, our state, our county, everything. Because at every level of government, we are getting way more in spending than we're paying in taxes. And the level of the federal deficit, the amount of the federal debt, it's pretty scary. So what I will say is this, without being all doom and gloom, Bowie is going to fix the problem this year. At a bare minimum, your city government is going to fix the problem this year and maybe be the only level of government you have that is fixing the problem, right? It's not going to solve everything, as Mr. Muckle said. We do have a ways to go to replenish our fund balance, and as Councilmember Rogers and Brady and Wolfley said, we want to replenish it as quickly as humanly possible. But that involves more policy trade-offs we have to make, cuts to services, future tax increases, something, right? And we're not going to know until this budget is signed what the picture is going to look like. We'll know pretty clearly once it's done, and we'll know once we start getting tax assessments back what we're looking at from a revenue perspective. But thank you for the question.
Right. So I'll go with the next tougher question. That's for you, Dufour, and anybody else, but you talk about Bowie Town Center. And you remember when it was the people from Virginia was coming here, and Crofton got smart, whatever, and they doubled and tripled the size. But I said, to attract top flight, how do you propose to do that? Because I know I had Al Lott come to my meeting several times, and it hasn't happened. I still like the Panera Bread, but it's not going to do it for me.
Well, I think the key on the Bowie Town Center, and we have had, by the way, for folks that don't know, the Bowie Town Center, a portion of it, the main track, has a new owner. There are multiple tracks in the Bowie Town Center. It's not all one owner for the entire place. However, there is some critical mass there with the new owner, and they need to be in a position that they reinvest in the property. It's no secret shopping centers have life cycles. When Bowie Town Center was built, it was the cat's meow. I mean, we had people backed up on a Route 50 at Christmas time waiting to get to the town center, and it was so dangerous they had to change the intersection at 50 and 197 because that's how popular it was. And then new shopping habits developed, and people have something fancier, newer up in Crofton and elsewhere, and now it's a little long in the tooth. And now what has emerged as the kind of the successful model is rooftops near shopping centers. If you go to Annapolis, you'll see that at the Parole shopping area. If you go to Pike and Rose, you'll see that environment there. And it's that sort of environment that I think we need to have to establish a sustainable, multi-purpose environment where you can have high-end quality retail supported by foot traffic from residents as well as people who work in that area and people who come to visit to shop and dine and so forth. So I think that's the future of it. It's not immediate. It's going to take some work with the county. It's going to take work with the property owners and developers who are going to have to come in and make some changes. So I think that's an opportunity. It's not super simple. I can't snap my fingers and I can't turn around and say, we'll build it all tomorrow. But it's the sort of thing that we'll work to at some point in time, see something come to fruition. I don't know if my council colleagues want to jump in on that.
I wanted to add to that because I'm excited about Bowie Town Center's future. I am very excited. We have new owners, who's a group, who are very excited as well, and they are moving forward, to me, with some steady pace here. They know what they want, they know what we want as a community, and they are very proactive around trying to get it. So I feel really good about Bowie's Town Center. Thank you.
We had a close call. We almost had some of that with the Sears property. That was going to be developed into some rooftops. It was going to become condos. Was it condos or apartments? I don't remember which one. Whichever one it was going to be, they were going to convert those to both. So that was going to be an opportunity to start off that kind of redevelopment. And then that developer got an offer from the current owner, and he says, well, I can get that much money without doing anything, I'll sell it to him. And so he sold it to him, and now it's a furniture store. And it, I don't think we needed that. I don't think that benefited the community, but it does highlight the fact that we don't control what private property owners do. They buy and sell at their will, and they develop it according to their best interests. And so we just have to share with them the vision and help them see what the best interest is, not just for them, but also for the community.
Copy that. So, next question. I did look over all the services, which I love, and I try to figure what you could cut. But say if you did cut the leaf collection at best $200K, does it put a dent in the $17 per month per 100,000? Oh, I'm sorry. I said, only thing I could live without was the leaf collection. I probably could. Yes, if you did cut something, it would be a leaf collection, and maybe one and a half. But I'm still spry enough to, rake my leaves. But it's only $200K, as you say. Does it change anything? It changes 2 cents? Okay, man. So maybe you want to think about that.
So the bad news is that 1 cent is about $1 million. So it's, 1/5 of 1 cent. I'm not sure if it's $200,000 exactly. We can look into it. We know the equipment is expensive. We know we're hiring seasonal workers. That's probably reflected in that orange graph with the contractual employees. And so realistically, we would have to cut a number of similar seasonal services for it to add up significantly. What I will say is those things do add up. Of course, the challenge is politically, what is the value of leaf collection to you? To me, it's on the order of negative $100. To someone else, they might be willing to pay $1,000 for it. I don't know. And those are the kind of hard policy decisions that we can only arrive at by talking to all you good folks and hearing from you at these meetings and in surveys and at council meetings.
And it seems the only thing people want to cut is a leaf collection. Right. I didn't go through the entire book that you put together here, but here's did you want to say something?
No, yeah, I was just going to say, part of the problem with services is not everyone uses every service the same way. And so the challenge there is to determine what's the best mix of services relative to the needs of the citizens. You like the leaf collection.
No, I can. It's fine, but I can live without it.
I love it because twice a year when they pick it up, literally, the leaves in my front yard are 4 to 5 feet tall, 6 feet wide, 90 feet long, twice. That's a lot of trash cans to put out on Wednesday for.
Good exercise for you, though.
But I'm just saying. But what I'm saying is, and like recreational amenities, not everyone in the city uses recreational.
He wasn't in a wheelchair all the time, just recently.
But you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
You've got to make sure that the services provided are appropriate for the community across the board, not for everyone necessarily, but rather is it appropriate for the city to is it appropriate for the city to provide that kind of service in the city for its residents? So that's the real question.
I'm for keeping all the services. I'm just saying that, if it seems to be the consensus is there's only one thing we can live without is leaf collection. So I didn't read the book here, but just a quick question here. So we have 2 categories. That's 80% of the budget. How many employees does the city employ?
The city has just over 450 full-time employees.
All right. So now here's the one I didn't know. Contractual services. What does that entail? That's pretty big.
Contractual services covers a lot of different things. It can be a contract for engineering services. It can be contracts for folks that provide entertainment for the city. Anything that we contract for, it can be IT services. It may be
even in our finance department, we have a contract for disposing of records from time to time. So contractual just represents a category of things that are services that we enter into long-term contracts for, or even short-term contracts.
Okay. I'll leave the comment. One of the things you have to love about Bowie is actually its services. Can you beat trash pickup twice a week? Imagine if it was one. My neighbor had 10 trash one day. So you pay for what you get. And when a service is gone, one day on a Thursday, you're going to find out it's gone. And it's unfortunate we have to pay, but we learned better to incrementally charge people as opposed to one big hit, so it's not killing people. So thanks for your time.
Hello, my name's Patricia. I've lived here almost my entire life, so 45 years. I'm from the B section, and I'm very excited that we have a DeMatha grad here because I'm a Seton grad. And I have full faith in you that you can bring the city back to the glory of the 80s and 90s. The city has a lot of history, so it deserves every accolade that it gets, and that's why people are like, I live in Bowie. I'm like, no, you don't. You don't pay city taxes. You're not a Bowie resident. Don't say that. My friends think it's funny, but a lot of people are like, well, Bowie. Like, you can say Bowie now. When I was growing up, I never used it. I would be like Annapolis or DC, but people know what Bowie is, so it stands for something. I also want to tell you that I'm taking advantage of the small business support that you have, and it is great because I'm working with the entire state. I'm driving up to Baltimore, and they're really excited when I say I'm from Prince George's County, I'm from Bowie. So it's a good thing, I think, for the state as a whole. So my question is, within the budget of Public Works, the top expenditure by almost 6% is Public Works, and we have a major issue happening right now. I understand all the talk about budget and the importance of it all, but I've never seen this, and I've lived here my entire life, and we have brown water. I'm in public health. I know we're not Flint, Michigan, but when I turn on the tap, it's been really bad sometimes. And I'm trying to think, my mother used to turn the spigot on. She always would tell me, 80s, 90s, let's just run the water for a little bit. There might be a little sediment. This is way more than a little sediment. So, is there a plan for this? Are you gonna, I know it's very expensive. I appreciate what you had just said. And I know it's a huge undertaking, but I'm just wondering what's happening.
Yeah. And I apologize, what was your first name again?
Patricia.
Patricia, thanks for coming out. What street are you on?
What school did I go to?
What street are you on?
Oh, Bentley. Well, no, sorry, I grew up on Bentley. I'm on Barrister now.
Oh, you're on Barrister. All right, you're close to home.
Yes, I think you came by my house and I missed you when you were first running.
Oh, wonderful. I was going to say, you're one of the few people here I don't recognize. That's cool. So to your question about Public Works is the most expensive thing in the city budget, so where's all the work happening on city water? None of the Public Works budget goes to city water. You're right. Well, here's the thing. So the city water system is an enterprise fund. It is funded 100% by ratepayers. So city's got about 59,000 residents, about 2,400 households. Yeah. 24,000 households. About 40% of Bowie households, pretty much Levitt Bowie, is on city water. The rest of the city, about 60%, is on WSSC. And you can tell because if you're on city water, chances are your water's yellow a lot right now, but your rate is about a third of what your WSSC bill would be. And if you're on WSSC, you get brown water maybe once a year, but your rate is 3 times higher. And that's the trade-off, right? So for the city water system, we've got about $180 million of lining and pipe replacement to make. We started this project about 5-6 years ago now. We mapped out the system. We identified the oldest, most fallingest apart parts of the system. We started out, I want to say, in the H section, and we've been slowly working on projects from there. The sedimentation, the discoloration, comes from the water system basically just being iron pipe. And iron over time builds up this sediment. It's basically just oxidized iron. It's called tuberculation. It's gross looking as heck. We have pictures of like what the insides of the pipes looks like, quite frightening. But basically it's just iron buildup in the water. And so what happens is whenever there's a disturbance to the system, the fire department has to plug in. There's a pipe break somewhere. There's something that kicks up the sediment. That's what gets that discolored, gross-looking brown color in your water. And just so you're aware, Mayor Pro Tem and I are both on the city water and sewer system. We have a couple of residents who insist that council members don't drink the water. 2 of us do. I filled up a jug of yellow water just yesterday. So we're getting it too, believe you me. The good news, which is not much of a comfort, but I think it has to be said because there's a lot of stuff on the internet, the water still meets all the safety standards set by the EPA. We test the water regularly. Those reports are all public. They can all be scrutinized. We're constantly inspected like every water system is. We pass all the tests with flying colors. We also had recent good news because there's new standards related to PCPs, basically forever chemicals in the water. Turns out Bowie water, not many forever chemicals. We're actually doing great. Good job, city aquifers. Good job, thousands of years of water collection under the city. But the bad news is that iron problem is going to continue being a problem because what's going to happen is as the system ages, we're going to keep getting more pipe bursts. We just had, 3 in the last month? We had a house fire in the T section. A couple days later, a pipe burst in the M section, secondary pipe burst in the M section. And so what happened is a bunch of stuff happened at once, kicked up all that sedimentation, which is why that discoloration has lasted so long in the system. The other part is because the city water system is all interconnected, even sections that we've lined or fixed could still get discoloration because they're connected to other parts of the system. So depending on what's getting kicked up where, it could still be a problem. So the solution is fairly straightforward. We've tacked on a couple of fees to our water bills. Boo, I know. But we're using that money to help fix the system. It's just very slow going. We have moved, I think our fastest year was 1 3/4 of a mile pipe that we replaced in a single year, roughly, at $3 million did it cost us? Yeah. And the system generates only about $700,000 a year in revenue, right? So we're doing 3 things. 1, we actually have part-time staff whose only job is to wander the halls of Congress and find every dollar in federal spending we can get for our city water system. I will give a lot of credit to my council colleagues who've been working the phones. I will give credit to former Mayor Tim Adams, who also contributed and was helpful when he was mayor, talking to a couple of our federal folks and getting some additional money. He was helpful on that front. We're continuing to ask for that help. Federal funding is what it is right now, but we're going to keep pushing. The second thing we're doing is we're going to look at striking a better balance between the water rate and the rate of repairs. That's a really polite way of saying we're going to raise the water rate probably a little bit more than we were already planning to, so that we can move a little bit quicker, right? Maybe 2 miles of pipe a year on a regular basis as opposed to 1 or 1.5 miles, okay? The good news is our rate is still very competitive next to WSSC. Not a lot of comfort when people's energy bills and WSSC bills and gas bills are through the roof right now. We are feeling it too, believe you me. But we're going to look at trying to strike that balance a little bit better so that this is like a 5 to 10 year problem and not a 20 to 30 year problem, which is what we're currently facing. And that faces exactly how I feel every time I read these updates.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I was scrubbing my bathtub last night, like the toilet stain. I mean, and I love this city. I bleed Prince George's County. I'm on the Hill, so I'm like listening to what you're saying. And I'm in Annapolis, and so, and I am here. I don't know if there's something I can do to help you, but it's not great. And like people that grew up here, like this is like pretty much the only home. My family has been here since like '63. So I'm like, and I understand it's hard, I know, and it was a rough winter, but I'm like, come on, Bill, we've got to do better.
No, I hear you. And it's gross as hell. And, as I've been telling everyone, no one should have to put up with this, period. So I'm with you. I'll say 2 things. 1, if you're getting discoloration like every single day for days and days and days and days on end, one of our predecessors led, we have a rebate program for water filtration systems. It is first come, first served, year to year. but essentially if you have like a uniquely bad problem, call Public Works, ask them to come to your house. They will come, okay? Maybe not that day, but they'll set up an appointment with you. If you meet the criteria, we will offer you a grant for a home filtration system. I will tell you a lot of residents have chosen on their own, even when they haven't qualified for that grant, to just bite the bullet and get it, because then the problem is solved instantly, right? But I would say reach out to Public Works, and if you're having a hard time getting a hold of anyone for any reason, just call me or email me directly and we'll get you connected. Any of my colleagues will help you as well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I know it's rough, so thank you.
Good evening again. Just a couple of thoughts that I've had is come up since we've started talking. When you think of the public education system around here, I've been here since '07, and that was May, and we had our daughter start in '09 fall, or excuse me, '07 fall. And I've noticed that when you look at Kenilworth, you look at Tasker, and you look at even Bowie, a lot of people from people that do not live in Bowie are dropping their kids off and getting an education from Bowie staff, you know, the teachers, etc., that we're like, why are we paying for these kids and taxing their education and funding their education? Not taxing it, but funding their education, as opposed to, you know, them not going to their own jurisdiction and getting their education based on where they live. Yeah. And that's one thing that I'd like to address. The other thing, having to address this fine young lady over here that brought up the subject of incorporated versus not incorporated Bowie. I had been sitting here wondering the entire time, and I know if I'm wondering, there are probably others out there conservatively that are also wondering. When you're looking at incorporated Bowie and versus not incorporated Bowie, but they're still calling themselves Bowie, what are the boundaries and what are we talking about? And I know someone had said that they would share that with me, but I think it would be necessary to get that on the record here.
Yeah. So I'll start with the second first. If you go to our website, you can look at the City of Bowie website, you can look at the district maps, and it will outline exactly where the city boundaries are and the jurisdiction that is incorporated Bowie. If you're not inside those boundaries, then you're not a resident of the City of Bowie, you don't pay taxes and so forth. On your first issue, which is education issue, that's not our thing, you know, it's Prince George's County. That having been said, I did just spend some time with the folks over at Tulip Grove, and a lot of those folks who are driving their children to that school are actually Bowie residents who the bus ride is too long or it's too unreliable, and we assume oftentimes that they're coming from far afield, and it turns out that it's not really the case. It's just from 3 blocks away, and they're heading to the school oftentimes too quickly, I might add. But it turns out that we have a lot more people who drop their kids off at school than they used to. When I was growing up, it was a wake them up, kick them out, and go get yourself to school. And that's not the case any longer, and a lot of times it's a difference of willingness and attitude and time spent with kids. Thank you.
All due respect to you and the rest of the council, I don't disagree with you. I was grown up and raised the same way, but at the same time, I am noticing and have noticed during my kids' school years that a lot of these vehicles are coming from DC because they have DC tags. So it just, you know, it's not a matter of, it's a Maryland tag and they're 3 blocks away and they're being dropped off at school. So it's not just that, and it's more to it than that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patricia. I live in the S section. I just have my phone here so I don't miss my talking points. This is my first time ever coming to anything like this, so. Thank you. People don't usually get, involved in a community until something happens to them personally. So I personally, I guess what got me here was the water situation. NBC4 and DC News Now came to my house and interviewed me recently about the water. So I'm not up here to talk about that because that's already been addressed. I use Bowie services. I brag on Bowie services. I have friends who have been considering moving, and I'm like, you should come to Bowie because we have this and we have that. And we're constantly comparing, I have 2 trash pickups and a recycle, and they're like, I have 1, and love Bowie services. I have 4 kids in Bowie schools. 1 has since graduated, is in the Navy, but I have 3 boys at Bowie High School right now. So this is my community. I chose to move here. I bought my house here. I don't want to leave. So this is important to me. The cost of everything is going up. It's affecting everybody. So yes, we're paying more for everything. The last thing anybody wants is to pay more taxes. At the same time, the last thing anybody wants is to lose out on services that are very beneficial, even the leaves. And having teenage boys that don't have to do too much because we just have to get them to the curb, I'm sure they could appreciate that too. But I do understand that we have to find a way to pay for all of these things. I am a runner, literally. I run all over Bowie. I jokingly call myself the mayor because I run Bowie. You get it? At any given run, I can hit 10 miles. From S section to E section, across the little bridge, I run all over Bowie. And when you're outside as much as I do, you have time to stop and look. You notice the trash. You notice, oh my God, when did this close down? Oh my goodness, they opened this. I notice everything. In my neighborhood in the S section, there's like the old Pizza Hut. There's the professional building that I don't know what's going on there. The Goodyear, the tire place. What is happening when all these businesses close down? How is that affecting the city? And how can we get more small businesses back? And do you think that that would help us, kind of offset a little bit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, great question. Thank you very much. And I can answer a couple of questions on the Pizza Hut and on the Bowie Professional Building. So the Bowie Professional Building has been gutted. It's just been sitting there like a skeleton and an eyesore with some chain link fence out front. The good news is the new owner, that had been owned by a doctor that had been one of the, I think, long-standing doctors in the community. He sold it. The owner is going to redevelop it into a high-end studio for salons and that sort of thing. So the idea, the concept is that you will go in and there may be, I think, 56 different individual salon studio type things where you can get your hair done or you get your nails done or makeup, all that sort of thing. It gives a place for somebody who is an entrepreneur of that nature to work in an upscale environment. So that's what's happening with that building. I don't have a schedule on it, but I was over there and I did talk to the owner, and he has also purchased the Pizza Hut next door. He says he needs it for the parking space, but he also wants to put in a new restaurant. So he's going to build, he's going to rebuild. He may tear down or he may just remodel that building. He's envisioning something with a patio out front and seating outside, and he wants to make it more of a high-end place. He's not looking at another chicken joint. So no fried chicken. I've forgotten the name of it. It's a southern cuisine type of, what is it? Miss Peaches, something like that, yeah. So that's what's coming to that location. And I do think that those things do improve the community. I mentioned earlier about life cycle of properties, and I'm glad to see that that's switching around. And yeah, it makes a difference. And I know a lot of people in District 2 is my neighborhood. A lot of people ask me about that, and I'll put it in my next newsletter. I don't know if I get that out the door sometime soon. One more?
I wanted to just add an answer to her question. Patricia, thank you for coming out, and thank you for saying nice things about us city services. We do have some city staff in the room tonight who I know are very gratified to hear how many residents are expressly very pleased with those. One thing about the investment situation in general that has me a little bit nervous, I'm talking to a lot of, and all my colleagues do as well, it's not just me, we all talk to a lot of investors and people who might be interested in purchasing properties that are underutilized or vacant or whatever the case may be. One of the big concerns that I consistently see is three things. One, capital right now for retail investment is crumbling. We're seeing a lot of real estate investment trusts purchase more and more of our shopping centers across the country. As rough as I think it is here sometimes, when I drive an hour and a half almost any direction and start leaving suburbs and entering into the exurbs, I don't know if y'all have noticed or not, but this is a country of empty pharmacies, Dollar Generals. That's pretty much it. Walmart has now become a luxury good in a huge part of this country, and it's really concerning to me. So we're seeing an overall retail landscape that's looking bleaker and bleaker. The good news about Bowie is our location. It's the #1 advantage we have, being in such close proximity to so many things. DC, tech in Northern Virginia, healthcare, which is still pretty large in the area, are good as far as generating jobs, which is great. We have relatively high incomes and very high levels of education in Bowie, which helps attract investors. But the big concern that I have in the long run is just what retail capital is going to look like. And increasingly, one of the things that I want to set expectations for is that more and more counties and towns are having to pay businesses to set up in their communities, right? So they will pay property taxes. They get nothing in exchange for those property taxes. You're just paying for the good of being here. But oftentimes we're seeing businesses specifically ask for cash deals, where we're giving them a rebate over a period of time for them to operate here. And I just want people to be aware of that, because that is something the council is going to have to consider more and more. I will tell you, in all the years that I've done this, the vast majority of residents I have met have told me they would much rather we enter those deals if we can attract particular desirable retailers. And there's a handful that I know many of you have raised to me in the past, that I think this council is completely prepared to help support, but I just want you to be aware that that's a trade-off we're increasingly going to have to make as we deal with a tougher and tougher investor climate.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Linda Tucker. I live in the Rockledge section, and the questions I have, I took the survey, and the services that were listed are very high level. We're talking now specific expenditures. Can we get together another survey that lists the services, like the leaf pickup, like the trash pickup, like we talked about the special events, and see what services people really want? The one we have was very high level, community services, that department level. Can we get a survey together that says the top 5 I'd like to see gone, the top 5 I'd like to see stay, and check boxes to see what we can do?
So listing out every service would probably be like 300 check boxes in a survey. I mean, genuinely, if we went down to the individual event, it'd be like 300 check boxes. What I would suggest is there's a portion of the survey where I think you can give an open-ended piece of feedback. Use that to name a specific thing you want preserved or tossed out. That'd be my recommendation. We actually had a long debate on council about the survey and where to meet that middle ground, and we discussed the possibility of including like more detail, and then we realized no one was going to complete the survey because they would get to page 6 of reading all the things and they'd get lost. So you're 100% right. granular detail helps, I would just recommend using the open-ended portion.
Okay.
Thank
The
you.
other thing is the budget book. It's 400 pages. There are more words than numbers. I'm a person that needs to see it, like the columns that are on here, but very specific. How much do we pay for Bowie Fest? How much do we pay for the leaf pickup? What that tells me is generic numbers. I'd like to see a budget that's specific, what every line item is, because if we're going to have to cut services, we should know what we're dealing with.
To your point, if you go through the budget, there are a lot of words in there. So the budget lays out not only every individual department, every individual program, and every individual service, it also describes the objectives and the goals for every department, every program, every service. It also lays out every single capital improvement project we have. So pretty much every penny that we're spending is listed in there. But there's also descriptions of what we expect out of those services, what's new, what's changing, what we're doing for next year. So I agree with you, it's a very long document. I tell people it's a wonderful sleep aid, either for reading or for hitting yourself with. But everything is in there. I know it's a big document. I would say if anyone has any specific questions or wants any feedback on like interpreting anything in there, reach out to any one of us in the council. We also, through our budget work sessions, go through the budget in great detail. We're going to be going through a lot of individual programs and services this coming Monday as we look at potential things we might want to reduce or at least just discuss. So follow along with those meetings, but I would say any confusion or uncertainty about the budget, reach out to one of us directly, and if we don't have an immediate answer, we'll put you in touch with city finance staff who've been working overtime, really making sure everyone gets clarity.
All right, and my last thing.
Let me add to that, because that sort of came up at our last session. So what we have to do is make the information more consumable to the average resident. And what we don't want to do is kill more trees behind this. So at some point in the future, in the near future, it would be nice to be able to go on to the website, find the page on the budget, and point and click and get your explanations. That takes time, but I absolutely understand what you're saying. For someone that's, relatively new, last couple years, it has been a challenge for me to track what I'm looking at and what's going on.
Yeah, I'm looking for a simple Excel spreadsheet.
Yes.
The name of the program, how much we spent on it last year, what's the proposed for this year. Simple Excel spreadsheet. My last thing is, at the last meeting on Tuesday, we talked about a strategic plan. Do you guys have a strategic plan, and are you going to publish it?
We do have one, but Dan, did you want to handle this one?
Certainly, I'll handle this one. So the city does have a strategic plan. It has been worked on over the past couple of years. Just recently, just a couple meetings ago, we had a presentation on the strategic plan where we outlined what the goals were and all of the initiatives listed under that. It is actually attached to our agenda for that evening, and we're working on getting it published on the website so you can see the entire plan.
So I do want to add one thing, and I'll let Dennis talk. It's more internally focused rather than external, citywide strategy focus. So, but it's a good start. All right, thank you.
So you let me talk now? Thank you. No, I was going to just comment, your suggestions and observations are valid and appreciated.
Put your microphone here. Now it's here.
You're controlling my mic, too. Can you hear me now? Good. Your observations and comments are valid and appreciated, and I hope my colleagues and staff look to incorporate much, if not all. Okay. Thank you. Okay. A lot of critics in the House. But all of those are valid and things that we ought to look at implementing And it may not be in the budget document itself, because you're going to add hundreds, if not thousands of pages if you break each one down. But it may be something where on the website, you go to the budget document, you click on the program, and it then comes out and gives additional information. But that's an adaptation we can do in the future. And I can tell you, my first budget on the city council was in '94. And the budget back then was markedly different from what the budget is today. And that's all those changes occurred because of suggestions, council staff, and the public on better ways to present the information. So we'll follow up on that.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. I think I'll turn this over to Mike in a moment here to close out. But there is one. You have a question? You have a question? You have we have an intruder.
Excuse me, Dufour. My name is William. I'm here in the K section. I don't really have a question. Yes, I do. I have three of them, actually. We've talked a lot about economic development, and there's kind of no avoiding the problem of the taxes, I think, and I'm not, this is above my pay grade. I'm just a guy who lives here. So my questions are three. First, where can I buy Bowie merch? Where can I buy Bowie merch?
Up at the mansion.
Yeah.
Okay, time out.
Yeah.
Everyone stop.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna save us some time. Bill's gonna start making some Bowie merch.
No, I'm not.
Hold on.
No, I'm not.
Well, time out.
I like it.
William is gonna make some Bowie merch. We're gonna show it to city staff. Staff, we're gonna work through some hurdles on what it takes for us to create our merch. We'll get that going. We can find some places where we can sell it, but let's have that conversation directly.
No.
And I'll find out.
Question two. Where can I buy the Bowie honey?
We don't sell it.
All right, look. No, so listen. The thing that I'm thinking and is really just there's a lot of money in the long term in city pride. And it's a drop in the bucket. We're not gonna make $20 million selling dog bandanas, unless we sold a $20 million dog bandana. Anyway, that is my whole thought. This is, I hear Wanda talk about the economic development. I hear Roxy talk about it a lot too, and I'm kind of there with it. And it's a conversation that's above my pay grade, but I do think these are little tiny things that are drops in the bucket. So I will leave now because I'm getting very mean looks.
All right, thank you. I do want to, one last thing, one comment I want to make for folks. If you get my newsletter, you may have seen this, but I wanted to highlight where we are presently and where we would be if we were to go with our proposed 20-cent increase in taxes. Right now, there are 27 municipalities in Prince George's County. Our current tax rate at 40 cents per hundred. We are number 22 in terms of tax rate. So we've been living down at the low end of the scale. With a 20-cent increase, we will end up at 10. So this still puts us well below the top of the line, which is our friends in Greenbelt, who are paying 82 cents per hundred on that. But it gives you an idea just kind of vis-a-vis the neighbors, what we're paying. I think the quality of the services that we're getting, they're commensurate. And now we're just going to have to figure out which ones and kind of bring it all home and round it up. Mayor Stev, you have any closeouts here?
Yep, and be real quick. First off, does anyone actually have any remaining questions?
Yes.
Scott.
I had brought up earlier that I would be curious to know, as I'm sure others might be, what was the what happened Tuesday night for those of us who were not there in attendance?
It's online, it's on camera, but it was a similar meeting to this tonight. Mostly people saying they really like the services. A few people explicitly said, raise my taxes, just keep the services good. A lot of questions about how we got here, a lot of questions about the water system, but I would say the overall meeting was pretty similar tonight. Colleagues, different impression? Similar? Yeah.
A little bit more engagement tonight.
More engagement tonight, more humor tonight, more personalities tonight. Yeah.
No, no merch.
All right, so let me, and we're past time, I want to respect folks, but actually, in all seriousness, William actually makes a lot of really good Bowie merch, and one of the things that residents have brought up over the years is wanting to create a better sense of identity for Bowie. And this is something we hear as much in North Bowie as we do South Bowie. There's just a general feeling of like, well, what is Bowie's brand? What's its identity? We put that blue Bowie sign up on the gateway. People emailed me for 10 straight years about how they hated that the bushes were dying. I said, you guys are going to hate whatever we put up there. We put that up there, and now everybody emails me how much they hate the blue sign. That is, for better or for worse, the new city logo. It's here. I'm not spending the money to change it for at least another 5 years. So give me 5 years, and then we can talk about changing it again. But the short version is we have, we do want to think proactively about how we can create more branding and identity, and that's something that I know that Michelle and others will have some pretty strong feelings about. Let's keep the conversation going about that offline.
Banners, I will interject, say alley.
I'm sorry?
So when you see the banners down the street and the B is not solid and contrasting in color, our banners say alley.
Gotcha. We'll have.
All seasons, and I'm going to walk away so I don't say anymore.
You're good. We'll have aesthetic debates about Bowie branding in the future. I invite everyone to that meeting. Yes, Latoya.
You all talked about the festivals that are being canceled. Old Bowie Celebrates is still on, and Old Bowie, October 3rd.
Yes.
So see you all there.
Latoya was just saying that the Old Bowie Celebrates Festival is still on. It's in October 3rd. Latoya and a group of Old Bowie residents work every year on that, and they want people to come out to it. It's a lot of fun. They have a lot of vendors, and we're also working on some projects long-term to do some revitalization in Old Bowie long-term. It's a very long project, but there's a lot of cool stuff happening over there, and Latoya is one of the residents who's been really engaged, and we're grateful for you. All right. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to thank you so much. I mentioned to you when I met you the first time that there were white lines missing on 197 over 50, and I want to thank you because I saw that it was painted.
I will always take credit for State Highways work, so thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening. A huge thank you. Oh, I'm going to turn this over to at-large Councilmember Dennis Brady.
No, I just wanted to add, we didn't say it in the beginning, but our two colleagues would have liked to have been here. I know Councilman, did you mention that? I didn't hear you say that. So I'm repeating something you said because I did not hear that. So, but Councilman Truesdale had to go out to a funeral and was not able to join us tonight, but he would have loved to have been here. And my apologies because I did not hear you.
We had some folks walk in late, so no harm in repeating. Clinton Truesdale, one of our colleagues, is at a funeral. Sadly, he had a family emergency. And Councilmember Ndi Bumadu from District 4 in South Bowie. They were both at the South Bowie meeting. They both represent South Bowie. Councilmember Ndi Bumadu had, unfortunately, a work emergency come up. But they both have said they're going to follow this meeting online. And they as well, for those of you who are in South Bowie, or those who just for whatever reason like them better than me, that's great. You can email them directly. They're very engaged, and they'll be happy to talk to you as well. But thank you for reminding me, Councilmember Brady.
I have nothing.
Councilmember Rogers, huge thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, have a really good night. Complete the survey. Send any of us an email. Thank you.